Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take the mountain of information you shared with us, and this week it's the YAR Sports Network's massive Week 2 college football recap, and we boil it down into instant knowledge. And if you manage to survive the weekend, you know the college football world is basically upside down right now.
Completely. The noise level around these ranking shifts is just deafening.
It is. And trying to sort through 25 games worth of analysis, that's a full-time job nobody has time for. So our mission is simple. We're cutting through that static. We're giving you the critical takeaways you need. We're synthesizing all this data to figure out why everything looks so different today than it did just 7 days ago. Okay, let's unpack this. We have seismic ranking shifts. I mean, the largest one-week shakeup we've seen in years.
Unbelievable score lines, too.
Exactly. And individual performances that just completely rewrote the Heisman race. So we aren't just reading scores here. We are diving deep to show you the shockwaves.
And that's really the challenge this week, isn't it? If week 1 is about setting a baseline, week 2 is all about volatility. It's about who gets rewarded and who gets punished. The source material shows the top 25 wasn't just, adjusted, it was completely rearranged. Our job is to synthesize all that and find the why.
Right. And to really get that, I think we had to start with the individuals, the players who put up numbers that were just transcendent.
Yes. These are the performances that didn't just affect one game, they changed the whole conversation.
So let's talk individual excellence, because some of these guys were absolutely electric. On defense, you have to start with Devin Moore from Florida. His Defensive Player of the Week performance against Oklahoma was, well, you almost have to see it to believe it.
It was the definition of a playmaker.
It was. The stat line is already phenomenal. 11 tackles, 2 interceptions, a pass breakup.
Which is an amazing day for anyone.
It's an All-American day.
Yeah.
But the key detail, and the YAR recap really highlighted this, was the timing. His second interception. It came when Oklahoma was driving, trying to make it a 2-score game.
A critical moment.
The most critical moment.
Yeah.
Moore steps in front of a slant, takes it to the house for a touchdown, and just slams the door on any comeback. That one play completely swung the game.
And that's precisely it. He wasn't just getting tackles, he was making plays in those high-leverage moments. And look, if Moore was a wrecking ball, then the Offensive Player of the Week, Jamal Haynes from Georgia Tech, was a freight train.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We're talking 280 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns in one game.
I mean, put that in perspective. That's more yards than some entire teams had in week 2.
It is. He didn't just gash them, he systematically wore them down. The source material noted that 150 of those yards came in the second half. That just shows his endurance.
And this is where it all connects, right? These individual performances, they immediately translate into the big national discussion, the Heisman race.
What's fascinating here is the impact was instantaneous. Jamal Haynes has vaulted himself up to number 3 in the Heisman race. Just like that.
Overnight. You just don't see a running back make that kind of jump this early.
You really don't. It proves that pure, overwhelming stats, they still speak volumes. And if you look at the whole top 5, it tells a really interesting story. Number 1 is still Haynes King, the quarterback from Georgia Tech.
Okay.
Number 2, Ryan Williams, the receiver from Alabama. Then at 3, like we said, Jamal Haynes, running back for Georgia Tech. 4 is Eli Sanders from USC. And 5 is Aiden Mazzell, receiver for Florida.
So 2 receivers, 2 running backs, and only 1 quarterback in the top 5. That feels unusual this early with the normal QB bias.
It is, but I think what it's saying is that the voters are recognizing the entire offensive machine at Georgia Tech. King is number 1 because he runs the show.
But his running back is right there with him.
Exactly. Having 2 guys in the top 3, that's not just one superstar. That is a terrifying system that produces Heisman-level talent, a huge early season development.
Okay, so that sheer firepower had to come from somewhere.
Which brings us perfectly to the game results. How do you get 2 Heisman candidates in the top 3?
You put up video game numbers. You put up a scoreline that makes people double-check their TV. Let's start with the one that just defied belief. Georgia Tech didn't just beat Florida State. They beat them 90-46.
90 points.
90 in a regulation college football game. It's just, I can't even think of a comparison in modern football.
And that's not just an anomaly. The YAR recap was pretty clear. It's an indictment of Florida State's entire defensive preparation. They just had no answer.
You have to wonder what that locker room was like at halftime.
Or if anyone was just in shock. That scoreline is exactly why Georgia Tech's offense is getting this much hype. They have a ceiling that maybe no one else can touch.
But the chaos wasn't just blowouts. A lot of the big shifts came from these tight, brutal, competitive games.
Exactly. The blowouts push a couple teams up, but the real carnage in the rankings comes from that cluster of upsets.
So let's run through the other key results. We saw Missouri edge out Washington, 21-14. A real defensive dogfight.
Yeah, that suggests Missouri is more than just a flash in the pan on offense.
Right. And Florida, maybe powered by Devin Moore, just dominated Oklahoma 62-31. That win was definitive.
Which also explains why their receiver, Aiden Mizell, is suddenly in that Heisman conversation.
We also saw Indiana deliver a very convincing beatdown of Utah, 35-3. The margin of victory there is what really stands out.
For sure. And Tennessee beating USC 41-35. Auburn handling Notre Dame 38-17. All significant. But they don't explain the complete demolition of the top 15.
No, they don't.
That's because the real volatility, the thing that broke the rankings, came from 4 specific tight upsets where highly ranked teams just stumbled.
Okay, let's break those down.
First, Nebraska. They were ranked 25th. They get a gritty win over the number 1 team in the country, Penn State, 35-28. The YR analysis said it was all about Nebraska's defense in the fourth quarter.
Wow. And then Ole Miss outlasted LSU in a shootout, 38-31. LSU was a top 10 team.
And that loss just immediately knocks them out of that elite tier. It was Ole Miss's defensive line in the fourth quarter that sealed it.
Crucially, Texas Tech beat Clemson, 35-28. That feels like a huge statement win for the Red Raiders.
It's a massive win, and we're going to see that reflected dramatically in the new rankings because that Clemson brand still carries a lot of weight.
And the last one?
Miami edging out South Carolina, 35-28. A little less flashy, but it kept Miami's record clean and set them up for a huge climb when everyone else was falling.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We take all that chaos, all those shocking scores, and we synthesize it into the new top 25. And honestly, it looks unrecognizable. Let's start at the top because it's absolutely wild. Texas moves up from number 2 to become the new number 1.
Okay, that makes sense.
Miami jumps from 3 to 2. But the huge one, the most dramatic jump, is Texas Tech soaring from number 10 all the way to number 3 after beating Clemson.
See, that leap is pure validation of that marquee win. I have to challenge it a little bit, though. A 7-spot jump for beating a team that wasn't number 1, it feels aggressive.
I agree. 7 spots is huge. Why Texas Tech at 3? Ahead of teams that have been dominating. What do they show?
The Yaya recap suggests 2 things. First, it was a win over Clemson, a brand name that carries massive weight. Second, Texas Tech had a complete performance. Good offense, good defense. Maybe other teams are seen as one-dimensional.
Okay. Rounding out the new top 5, you have Texas A&M climbing to 4 and Arizona State moving into the top 5 at number 5.
So the volatility clearly rewarded the teams that were sitting just outside that top tier and got a clean win.
But just as important as who went up is who fell. And this is where you see the punishment.
Sure.
Penn State, number 1 to start the week, drops 6 spots to number 7.
That's a huge penalty for one early season loss.
Clemson, after losing to Texas Tech, falls 4 spots to number 8. A sizable drop.
But the most dramatic fall, and this is what the deep dive really uncovers, belongs to Illinois. They suffered the biggest drop in the entire top 25.
How far?
They plummeted from number 5 all the way down to 18. That's a 13-spot drop.
Wow. That's not a punishment, that's a correction.
It's a brutal correction. The WAR analysts said their defensive scheme just completely collapsed. They didn't just lose, they showed fundamental weakness, and the pollsters just jumped on it.
That shows zero patience from voters.
Mm-hmm.
And we also saw LSU fall hard from 9 to 16. Notre Dame dropped from 13 down to 24. The cushion is gone.
It's totally gone. And that creates a snowball effect. Once you drop, it's that much harder to climb back.
But let's not forget the dark horses, the teams that shot up. Ole Miss made a massive 9-spot jump from 23 all the way to 14 after beating LSU.
That puts them firmly in the top 15 picture. Serious movement.
Nebraska, after beating the number 1 team, enters the top 20, moving from 25 to 20. They're a team you have to take seriously now.
And this brings up an interesting contradiction. Georgia Tech, for all their offense, their 2 Heisman guys, they only climbed from 24 to 22.
That's it. That's a quiet climb.
It is. It suggests pollsters are still skeptical. They might see that 90-point game as an outlier, and they're waiting to see if their defense can hold up.
That's a great point. They're rewarding the players, but withholding judgment on the team.
And finally, you have 2 new teams joining the party. Tennessee enters at 23 after beating USC, and Indiana is now ranked at 25 after that beatdown of Utah. The whole back half of the poll is just new.
So what does this all mean? The takeaway from the YIR recap is crystal clear. Week 2 was defined by maximum volatility. It rewarded explosive offense, and it relentlessly punished any team that showed defensive weakness.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Week 2 completely reset the entire national championship conversation. The source material validates that pollsters will make huge, immediate changes based on a single game.
It gives legitimacy to a team like Texas Tech jumping from 10-3.
Exactly. The consensus elite from Week 1, it's gone. It disappeared overnight. No one is safe.
The fragility of those early rankings is the whole story. The massive drops from Penn State and especially Illinois, down 13 spots, it just proves that reputation means very little after that first loss.
Which brings up an important question for you, the listener. The YAR recap suggested that coaches who suffer these big drops are immediately on the hot seat. This isn't just about rankings, it's about job security. So, will the teams that fell hard this week, the blue bloods like LSU and Clemson, will they stabilize and climb back up? Or is this volatility, this week-to-week chaos, is this just the new norm for the entire season? That's what we'll be watching very closely.